In a form of media largely known for its male-led action series, Yuko Takeuchi's Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon stands out as a breath of fresh air. First released as a manga in 1991, the story broke boundaries, becoming the first female-led action series meant for female readers. The series then went on to receive an anime adaptation in 1992, which led to the franchise becoming one of the most iconic works of fiction in modern media. For those unfamiliar with the series, Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon stars Yuseki Tsukino, an underachieving 14-year-old who'd much rather eat snacks and play video games than do homework. In truth, however, she's a reincarnation of Princess Serenity, the princess of the now-destroyed Moon Kingdom of the Silver Millennium and the heir to the Silver Crystal, a magic artifact that possesses infinite power. She's protected by the Sailor Senshi, a group of all-female soldiers, each being the guardian of a different planet and possessing mystical powers that they use to protect the solar system from evil. This inevitably begs the question, who is the strongest of the Sailor Senshi? While they have fought multiple times throughout the various adaptations of Sailor Moon, the results have been inconclusive for a plethora of reasons. As such, I'll be doing an objective ranking of the Senshi using their feats from the manga. And yes, I will be focusing exclusively on the manga, and for the sake of simplicity, I will be focusing on the 10 Solar System Senshi who are present for the final battle against the Helenia.
星彗星を守護に持つ地の戦士セーラーマーキュリー
This probably does not come as a surprise to many. Sailor Mercury is widely recognized as the weakest of the Sailor Senshi, and while this sentiment is mostly derived from the 90s anime, most notably the first season where she had zero offensive abilities, it does apply to the manga. This is best exemplified in the Dream arc, where Sailor Mercury's new attack, Mercury Upper Rhapsody, only manages to destroy Fisheye's mirror dimension without actually harming him, and Sailor Moon and Sailor Chibi Moon are needed to finish off Fisheye. On the other hand, Sailor Mars and Sailor Jupiter were able to each destroy the mirror dimensions they were trapped in and their respective Amazon trio opponent with one blow. Of course, what she lacks in raw power, she makes up for in intelligence and utility. Between her superhuman intelligence and magic-infused technology that would instill envy in Iron Man, Sailor Mercury is a master strategist and can enable her teammates to defeat tough opponents. Furthermore, she also has a special ability to create pocket dimensions around herself and anyone nearby, something she did to protect the Crown Center arcade from the collateral damage of their fight against Endymion.
その人のピュアな心を奪うなんて愛と情熱のセーラー服美少女戦士セーラーマーズが許さない火星に代わって
Sailor Mars is by no means weak. Well, technically none of the Sailor Senshi are, since even the weakest among them could probably destroy a solar system by the end of the manga. But her teammates are just too strong. She does have special psychic and spiritual abilities unique to her, such as clairvoyance, precognition, probability manipulation, and exorcism, but her firepower, pun intended, just doesn't measure up to those of the others.
訳あってタリスマンを探している。心の結晶は渡しませんわ。
Aha, I know what you're thinking. There's still two inner Senshi left, and the outer Senshi are stronger than the inner Senshi. Well, while this is pretty explicitly stated in the anime, it's not quite as clear in the manga. You see, the outer Senshi only state that they are more powerful because of their talismans, and we see this when they're brainwashed into fighting each other, as the inner Senshi are able to match the outer Senshi's non-talisman attacks pretty easily, and the fight just remains in a stalemate until Sailor Moon frees them from Cyprian's curse. So, Uranus and Neptune are only more powerful than the inner Senshi when they have their talismans, and I would argue that when the inner Senshi get their crystal power upgrades and receive their own weapons, this discrepancy dissipates. Now, I know a lot of people would point to when Uranus one-shot Sailor Moon and the four inners with one world shaking, but there are a lot of caveats to that. First of all, Neptune was doing some mind magic with her violin, so she was likely bypassing their natural defenses. Secondly, the inners definitely had their guard down due to 1, shock, and 2, apprehension to fighting who they would assume are allies. And thirdly, this occurred before the inners got their crystal power upgrades and even the playing field. Third point is especially important because we later see the four inners face tank a combined world shaking and dead scream and are totally fine. The one thing they do have with the inners is their speed feat in the last arc where they fly to the outer solar system extremely quickly, but given the speed feats the inners pulled off while in their baby forms in the first arc, I'd imagine they scaled to the outers once they reached their eternal forms, so this feat isn't even exclusive to them. As such, I unfortunately do have to put our beloved lesbian moms in the bottom 5. 三日月の星木星を守護に持つ保護の This is a good place to set a sort of benchmark or checkpoint to more tangibly understand what levels of power we're dealing with here. So far, we've seen the Sailor Senshi move at faster than light speeds, as evidenced by the Outer Senshi traveling to the outer solar system in a matter of moments, and we've seen the Inner Senshi destroy dimensions created by the Dead Moon Circus, which are stated to be entire universes. I still wouldn't take this too literally and just assume that all of the Senshi can destroy universes, but just the fact that they can do this is a pretty impressive indicator of what even the weakest of the Sailor Senshi can do. We can also introduce a few new feats that everyone in the list can take advantage of. For one, the Inner Senshi face-tanked a space-time distortion that was meant to crush them to death, and they were already injured from battle and were in their weakest forms. Then there's all the Sailor Senshi standing in the epicenter of Sailor Saturn's planet-destroying attack and surviving unscathed. With that aside, let's focus on Sailor Jupiter and understand why she is above Mercury, Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. On top of her powers over lightning and nature, Sailor Jupiter also has immense super strength, even beyond the base superhuman physiology all of the Sailor Senshi possessed. And no moment showcases this better than when the Inner and Outer Senshi are trying to free Sailor Moon from Nehelenia's mirror dimension. Sailor Mercury attempts to destroy the mirror with her Aqua Rhapsody, and while this does crack it, Sailor Jupiter is the one who actually shatters it. With a punch. And this punch is so strong that it severely injures Nehelenia, and Zirconia is even afraid Nehelenia may have died from the punch. Keep in mind that Nehelenia is a universe-creating goddess who has face-tank attacks from the Silver Crystal, and is probably the strongest incarnation of Chaos before, Chaos in its whole itself, yeah. So, yeah, Sailor Jupiter is pretty fucking strong. We get to the top 5, which consists of characters who, for the most part, actually have individual feats we can look at. To open this top half is Sailor Venus. As the leader of the Inner Senshi, she is the strongest of the 4, as evidenced by her wielding weapons from the get-go, which seems to be a sign of greater power in the Sailor Moon universe. Even when she was in her fetus form as Sailor V, she was able to destroy a massive skyscraper with a single energy blast, by accident mind you, and move around and complete tasks so quickly that regular humans couldn't even see her. She's also a physical powerhouse, as she relied mostly on her super strength when fighting a Sailor V. Upon becoming Sailor Venus, she immediately gains the powers of flight, force fields, and energy blasts, all of which she utilizes to effortlessly kill Adonis. Once she makes her appearance in the main series as Sailor Venus, we immediately see why she's top dog. When Sailor Mars and Jupiter's attacks bounce off of Zoiside's force field, Sailor Venus' Crescent Boomerang, her weakest attack, tears right through and shreds Zoiside to pieces. She then obtains a Sword of the Silver Crystal, which can shatter diamonds with a single tap. She then later uses the sword to kill the powerful Queen Beryl. Now, there are two moments that suggest Sailor Venus is above the previously ranked 5 Senshi, where one, while the other Inners faced off against one member of the Dead Moon Circus upon gaining the Crystal Power upgrade, Sailor Venus technically faced off against 3, one of which was much higher ranked, and also killed 2. The higher ranked enemy, Vesves, also seemed more afraid of facing Sailor Venus than facing the Outer Senshi, as she retreated from a 3v1 where she had the advantage, but gladly entered a 4v4 against the Outers. Then there's the fight between Eternal Sailor Moon and the brainwashed Sailor Senshi. Sailor Venus is shown to be the most powerful of the 8, as she easily stalemates Sailor Moon's attacks with random energy blasts, which are usually suggested to be weaker than named attacks, and even blocks Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss with a wave of her hand, equating it to a slight breeze. Then there's the group attack, the 8 Senshi launch against Sailor Moon, where Sailor Venus leads the others and seems to be gathering and concentrating the most energy. This actually destroys Sailor Moon's wings and briefly incapacitates her, and keep in mind that at this point in the series, Sailor Moon is well above destroying galaxies and taking similarly strong attacks, and probably scales much higher than that. At this point it's a little unclear since she's kind of in between upgrades, but this is a very powerful Sailor Moon that we're talking about. Sailor Pluto is incredibly powerful, but also incredibly limited. As the guardian of the space-time door, she can manipulate, well, space and time, and is manifest in the series as stopping time, allowing others to travel through time, and opening dimensional gates to banish enemies. However, stopping time does result in her death because of a restriction placed upon her by Neo Queen Serenity as revenge for hitting on her husband, and allowing people to travel through time isn't really much of a combative ability. However, her magical attacks are suggested to be above those of the other Senshi mentioned so far, and the fact that she could banish Fair 90 to another dimension is pretty insane, especially given that even Super Sailor Moon couldn't really defeat him. The Harbinger of Destruction, Sailor Saturn. Those familiar with the 90s anime may remember her as the girl who can destroy a planet at the cost of her own life, but in the manga, she's so much more. Her ultimate destruction ability is not limited to planets and theoretically has no limit, as she effortlessly destroys the solar system during the Silver Millennium in her base form, which is a feat that the other Senshi mentioned so far could likely only replicate in their eternal forms. And we've seen her casually destroy planets merely as collateral damage while fighting. Lord knows what she can do in her eternal form, and I mean that literally because we unfortunately don't get to see her do much of anything in it. Still, we know she's incredibly powerful, and through my many years of power scaling in Sailor Senshi, I've always put End of Series Saturn at around galaxy level. Now, this seems like an appropriate time to make clear that this is a ranking of raw power, not who would win in a fight. Sailor Chibi Moon is the epitome of untapped potential. As the wielder of the Pink Moon Crystal, the Silver Crystal of the future, she theoretically should be able to replicate Sailor Moon's feats. However, we don't see her do that, given that she's still a Senshi in training, and when she joins the fight against Shadow Galactica, we don't see her do much before she gets, well, erased from existence. Still, it's worth noting that when fighting with Sailor Moon, she's able to pull off some insane feats, like destroying a black hole. I would argue she has the potential to be the second most powerful of the 10 Sailor Senshi, but as she is now, she should definitely be much lower. No one's surprised, the titular character is also the strongest character of our series. Not only that, but she's arguably one of the strongest characters in fiction, given the ridiculous feats Naoko has given her. On the low end, / in her weaker forms, she's destroyed black holes, revived entire planets, transcended the space-time continuum, whatever that means, and jumped inside of what's essentially a living star system that's slowly growing to consume the entire planet, and come out unscathed. Once she goes eternal, she goes head-to-toe with a galaxy buster, flies across the galaxy in seconds, revives an entire galaxy, jumps inside an infinitely growing mass of stars and is completely unharmed, and possesses the power to destroy said infinitely growing mass of stars. She is capable of destroying infinity, essentially. Then, in the far future, when she becomes Sailor Cosmos, she's able to control and travel through time like it's nothing, and likely much more. I mean, her name is literally Sailor Universe. By the end of the manga, Eternal Sailor Moon is, on the low end, a faster-than-light universal-level reality warper. On the higher end, she likely is a multiversal being, given the exorbitant amount of universe-creating enemies she faces off against and alternate dimensions she destroys. I mean, Chaos literally states that Sailor Moon has the power to create a new universe, and she follows that statement up by resetting the life flow of the universe. So, yeah. Go Usagi! We love you!